Hello YouTube, welcome to the channel. Now then, today's video is going to be about maintenance. Now I've been approached recently by a couple of subscribers and they both asked me if I wouldn't mind at some point doing a video about maintaining an RC car and what the various bits and pieces do, where they are and what the general layout of an RC car is. So that is precisely what we're going to do in this video. Now then, for a donor vehicle we've got our much maligned and abused Eachine EC30B here. Literally, this thing has taken some ridiculous abuse. I mean, we took it out the other day and we were jumping it off everything, and you can see the state of the shock towers there. They're proper bananaed in. I smashed the rear wing off it. I just properly abused this thing, Kev Talbot style, except this didn't break. So we're going to lavish some well-deserved attention on this thing, and hopefully at the same time give a few pointers to the less experienced among us. Now, if you are in a market for a tough 1/14 scale buggy, look no further than one of these Eachine EC30Bs. I can't even begin to tell you how much abuse this thing has taken, and it still came back for more. I mean, the motor fell out of it and all sorts, and that ended up being my fault actually, because I used the wrong length screws. But this thing has taken some proper abuse, and it never missed a beat. So if you're looking for a tougher alternative to a Wltoys, not as quick, but a tougher alternative to a Wltoys 144001, I think this is your baby. Now that we've got the wheels off, we can check a few basic things like wheel nuts, make sure they're in good condition, no stripped threads, and if they're nylock, the nylon's still present in the end, because obviously that's the bit that stops them from coming off. Check your hex pins are in good condition, they're not bent or misshapen, because that can give you no end of trouble, especially when you're tightening them up. Wheels, etc., make sure there's plenty of tread on them and they're in good condition, because obviously these are the bits that are in contact with the ground. If you've got bald tyres, your RC's not going to handle very nice. We can also check the wheel bearings. Again, if you've got excessive play in them, this can cause you no end of problems. The wheels can wobble around all over the place, and the RC can go in all sorts of funny directions. Now then, in hindsight, I really should have washed all the sand off this thing before I started working on it for the video, but I can't be bothered to do it now. But if you've got any dirt and detritus before you start working on them, get rid of it, because that might end up in the moving parts, and that will just incur more wear as you go on. Next thing, I think we're going to take the suspension units off and try and straighten these brackets out. Now I'm just taking the shocks off just to briefly check them over, just to make sure everything's all right with them. Basically, I've taken the lids off just to check the oil level. There's plenty of oil in them still, and to be honest, it does feel as though there's plenty of damping, so I'm not going to top them up because they're pretty good. But if a lot had leaked out, or you've got no damping anymore, obviously you'd have to top them up and or renew the shocks depending on what had happened to them. But these seem pretty good, so I'm going to leave these and move on to the back. Right, that's all 4 shocks off, and all I've done really is check them over and clean them up. They're all in surprisingly good condition despite the hammering they got. No leaks, nothing's bent, so it's a testament to how good the standard shocks are on this thing. Now then, we've got to do something with these aluminium brackets. We've got to try and bend them back into shape. Aluminium is quite fickle. If you're not careful, it can end up snapping, which hopefully that won't happen. I'm not 100% sure whether we're going to be able to get that one back into shape, because that is really bent, that one is. While we've got the shocks and the bits and pieces off the rear suspension, we can take the dog bones out, give them a clean, etc. Same with the rear drive cups. We can sort of check them over, check the bearings over, make sure they're all in good condition, give them a wipe over, shove them back in, and if they're damaged or whatever, you can replace them. So I've pulled the 2 front pins out of the wishbones just so I can get the front drive shafts out, just to basically clean them up, check them over, make sure they're not worn, etc. These are in pretty good condition still, so there's no point replacing them. I also took the shock towers down into the garage. I've got like a little vise down there with a flat plate at the back, and just give them a little bit of a love tap until they've gone back into some sort of a straight shape. I wouldn't personally use anything like pliers on them, because like I say, aluminium can be very fickle and snap easy. I mean, I think I was lucky really to get both of them into some sort of a reasonable shape, to be honest, without them snapping, but managed it. So all that's left really is just to check the transmission. Now if you have one of these little 1/16, 1/18, 1/12 scale 4-wheel drive buggies, they all have the same sort of plan form. So normally you'll have some sort of a centre drive shaft driving a front differential and a back differential, and the power will be transmitted to that shaft via a reduction gear and a gear on the end of the motor, and they're all pretty much the same. Sometimes the location of the motor differs, sometimes it could be in the middle, but normally they all share the same sort of transmission setup. So once you've worked on one, you've worked on them all. So what we'll do is we'll take these covers off, get the diffs out, check all the gears, and we'll repack the diffs with grease, and then we'll start putting this thing back together. Right, so now the covers are off, it gives us a better view of the transmission. So there's our rear differential, there's our reduction gear on the main shaft, there's our motor pinion gear, and there are some little, I don't know if you see there, little bevel gears that drive the outer ring on the differential. That's exactly the same front and rear. Now, while you've got all the covers off, you can sort of rotate the transmission a little bit, so you can check for like broken gears, worn gears, etc, etc. Now I have noticed that although there isn't a great deal of wear, the two bevel gears on the end here that drive the diffs are starting to sort of shark tooth over slightly. So I'm not going to do it now, but at some point they're going to fail, I can almost guarantee it. But what we're going to do now is, we could also check the bearings, make sure the bearings are sort of not collapsed, or they've still got decent bearings in them. And this, to be honest, this car runs pretty smooth. But what we're going to do now is we're going to take the diffs out, unbolt them, and then we're just going to repack them full of grease. Ideally, you'd want some sort of fluid in there, because when the gears move through the grease, they tend to cut a path, and then they don't tend to lubricate as well. But even if you put really thick sort of diff oil in these, eventually it does come out and just goes everywhere. So I tend to pack these little diffs with grease. So that's what we're going to do. Strip one of these, have a look inside, and repack them and shove them back in. So on these particular diffs, there's only 4 screws that hold the two halves together, so it's a fairly straightforward job opening them up and checking. So inside we can see the little diff gears, and to be honest, these look pretty good, although there isn't much grease in them, but we're going to remedy that in a moment. But it's just a matter of just checking them, making sure they look half decent. Again, there's no broken teeth, or there's no appreciable wear on them. You can normally tell when they start to go that some of the edges start to sharpen up, or they start to shark tooth over a little bit, but these look pretty good. So what we're going to do is, I've got some, little sachet of grease that I have a WPL, and I squirt some of that in, reassemble, and then put the thing back together. So now I've repacked the diffs and reassembled them. I have actually noticed that the rear one has got some appreciable wear on the teeth, so that will probably need replacing soon. I've put a few blobs of grease on before I actually put the covers back on, just to give them a fighting chance. But now we've done that, we can actually start reassembling this thing, and hopefully remember where all these screws went. So there we have it, the little fellas are back together, and hopefully now will give us many, many more hours of RC entertainment. How did I remember where all the screws and fasteners go? I have absolutely no idea, but here's the kicker, still can't remember my wife's birthday. If you have any RC maintenance tips that you would like to share with the community, please stick a comment in the comments section and share it with everyone. As ever, if you found this video of some use and interest, please give it a big thumbs up, and if you're feeling that way inclined, hit that subscribe button for more similar future content. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will catch you again very, very soon.